welcome to another episode of Strictly Healthy. Hopefully you can hear me all right. So this is the show that discusses all things to do with our health, and things that affect us holistically. So it could be to do with mental health, it could be emotional health, things that to do with finances, etc. Also, of course, we're looking at our physical health. So all these things impact us. And I have fierce experts that come on and share their expertise regarding what we can do to improve our health, basically. So today is no exception. I have Sabrina Shadie with me.
Shadie, yeah.
Shadie, sorry.
Yeah.
So I said that wrong. Never mind.
It's not a problem.
You're going to, let's see, you are a resilience and mental health champion. I know you're other things as well.
Mm-hmm.
But today we're going to be speaking and talking about the 7 R's to do with realigning and having a positive attitude and mental health, resilience, basically.
Yeah.
So first of all, maybe you can tell us a bit more about who you are and what you do and what is resilience?
That's a really good question. So I'm Sabrina. I'm actually originally a youth worker, an educator, teacher. I spent sort of 15 years in public sector working with young people in all kinds of, and communities actually, in all kinds of situations. So the resilience part, I did a lot of like behavior management stuff in my day-to-day job, which included CBT, which is cognitive behavior therapies, and the whole process of helping young people learn how to manage their lives in more effective ways.
Okay.
That was the key part of it that led to this. Then in 2015, my daughter was 12. She got diagnosed with a life-limiting heart condition. And we were thrown into, our whole family was thrown into a huge sort of turmoil. And through that process, I sort of recognized that I wasn't able to utilize the skills that I'd learned in my profession in my real day-to-day life. It was really difficult because you're too emotionally attached. So we were very lucky. We were able to access external support through children's hospices and professionals in that sense. And as she got better and we learned to cope better, we began to develop some sort of mental health strategies and tools for other families. And this particular model is one of those tools that we developed as a way to help families, and particularly children or young people, really have some tools that they can use for everyday improvement in how they manage difficult situations. There's a big difference between resilience and what I consider survival mode.
Okay. Yeah.
So when we get challenged, when something happens in our lives that is negative and has a negative impact on us, our automatic response is to go into survival mode. And that can look very much like resilience. If you think about something, in a really extreme situation like a refugee, somebody in that kind of life-threatening scenario, they will survive and go, oh, you're so resilient. That's not resilience, that's survival skills. They didn't have an option, they didn't have a choice. It wasn't a considered process.
Okay.
Whereas proper resilience is about having that support and that mental stability to be able to go, okay, this is a challenging situation. What's the best way of me dealing with it? Rather than this is a challenging situation, I've just got to survive. Yes. So it's a slightly different approach.
It helps to sort of know this information ahead of time.
Absolutely.
Prepare yourself, more or less.
Which is why we do the training courses that we deliver around mental health for young people. Because it's not about having poor mental health, it's about avoiding getting poor mental health by having these strategies in the first place.
Fair enough. Yes, yeah. So you're going to talk us through 7 points and how we can build a better, more positive mindset and better resilience.
Yeah, so the 7 R's is really about realigning your energy so that instead of getting caught up in really negative emotional cycles, reactive cycles, we can move more towards being resilient and being responsive to situations as they come up. So it kind of links to mindfulness and those other kinds of traits that we try to teach young people. So the 7 steps are, it's that 7 sounds like a lot, but it's quite simple, really. So the first one is about removing yourself from the situation, which seems really obvious. But we put this together particularly around young people using social media and getting triggered from things that are being said or done on social media. So it's about removing yourself, turning off the screen, going and doing something else. So just taking that time out. The second thing is about redirecting your energy. So find something else to do. rather than fretting about whatever that thing was. Redirecting your energy is also about finding something that you enjoy doing. So it might be going for a walk. It might be playing a game. It's lots of different. It's whatever it is for you. Reading a book. The third thing is about replenishing. A lot of us make terrible decisions when we are tired, hungry, thirsty, and haven't been looking after our body's natural
Yes.
needs. So people talk about
So how?
hangry a lot.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. So how can we replenish ourselves then?
So the replenish is really about looking at, go and have a drink, have a healthy, ideally healthy snack. I'm a big fan of naps. I feel like having a little sleep, it just resets my energy and I wake up feeling much better. I know it's not for everybody.
Yes.
But it can also be doing something exercise, because exercise can change the chemical in your brain and in your body so that you feel a bit more balanced. If we sit static too long, that's not how our body's supposed to behave. So by moving around and being a bit more energetic, it can help us rebalance our energy levels in our bodies. So replenish it's usually one of those four things, but it's what it is for you as well. It's about listening to what your body tells you.
Yes.
And we're not always very good at that in
Yeah.
general.
Well, for me, I at noon or so, I'll take off and I'll go for like a 15-20 minute walk and come back.
Mhm.
And yeah, I do feel refreshed. So yeah,
Yeah, it completely
that's
changes your
good.
energy level. Even just
Yeah.
being
Good.
outside in the fresh air, even if you're not going for a really, a long walk, just step outside for 5 minutes and
Mm,
let yourself get a little bit of the sort of sun on you and feel the breeze. Um,
indeed. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Step 4 is about reflection. And we
Mhm.
teach a lot of reflection, because looking at where you were to where you are is obviously a really key lesson. But reflect on the thing that triggered your emotional reaction. After having your drink or having your nap or your snack or whatever it was, look back and goes, is it really that big of a thing? Did I really need to react that way? What was a better way I can deal with this situation? And that's not to say you shouldn't be upset by it, but you shouldn't be goaded or triggered by other people into making a reaction that is going to be negative for you in the long run. And it's
Right.
understanding that difference.
Mm,
Number 5 is about reframing it. So how can you look at it from a slightly different perspective so that you get a better outcome? So if somebody
okay.
was
Yeah.
rude to you, your reaction might be to swear back at them and shout and whatever. But
Yeah.
actually, the reframe is, what's happening in that person's life that made them feel that they need to shout at me? Because it's nothing to do with me. It's about where they're at in their emotional
Right.
journey.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you can understand that, you don't feel the need to react to them in the same way. You can
Yeah.
kind of pity them rather than become aggressive towards them.
So
And that
so
probably,
sort of step back and think about it for a
yeah,
minute.
that's it. What's going on for that person, or what's going on that's caused this, and how do I avoid it escalating?
Mm,
Um, Number 6 is about revisiting it where possible, and it's not always possible. Like, I'm not saying go back and get involved with trolls on Facebook who might have said something inappropriate. But especially when we're talking about relationships within our families or within our friendship groups, and something was said, or we reacted badly, try and
mhm,
revisit it, but with a much more mature approach. I've gone away, I've had to think, I could have dealt with this better. And even if you weren't in the wrong, you can still say you're sorry. There's a real stigma about, if you're sorry, you're taking some kind of blame or responsibility. Why is that a bad thing? We should be responsible. And I don't go around trying to hurt other people's feelings. I don't think most of us do. So saying, I'm sorry that it turned out the way it did, that was not my intention, is not it's not a bad thing to say that. So yeah, try and revisit it and see if you can smooth things over. And then the final one is about review. So it's thinking about what you've learned from this process and from this particular situation.
mhm,
Um, were you successful in revisiting it? Were you successful in stepping away at the right time before it escalated? Um, how could you do things differently next time? And what would you like to improve about the process for yourself in future? So
mhm.
it's a real step-by-step sort of action plan to help young people learn those stages of removing themselves from challenges or from situations that might trigger them.
Mm. So yeah, that sounds really good. So how do you find these steps have been helpful for the young people that you deal with?
Yes, we teach it as part of an ongoing course that we deliver. So we've got a little bit of funding, and we provide training for young people to manage their mental health through coping strategies. I haven't got any with me. We use art journal. So we
Oh,
developed the course into an art journaling course. So it's resilience skills, but using art and using creativity. So we get the young people to draw these sort of tools and plans out in their journal because it helps them remember them for when, because you're not necessarily going to have your journal with you or the resource book with you when you're out and something happens. So yeah, we try and teach it as part of a wider program, but all of the videos are available on our YouTube channel.
oh, the resilience stuff that you teach
Yeah,
is all.
yeah, our resilience.
Okay.
Like we do little snippet resources available.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, maybe what we can do at some point is go through some of those other points from your YouTube videos and so on, and see if we can bring tease some of those points out possibly.
Yeah, I mean, there's always more.
Yes, yeah. So, what age groups of young people do you tend to
I
deal
actually
with?
work with all age groups, so I work with
Oh, okay.
parents and things like that as well. But the current programs that we have been funded for, I think, are young people from 13 or 14 right up through to 25.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's good age group. People that that need this sort of help, especially now. I think there's so much to do with social media, and they're bombarded by trollers and those types of people, that negative
Yeah.
information. And it's amazing to me that people, they wouldn't say certain things to your face, but because they have this sort of screen in front of them, that an anonymous situation, they feel they can say whatever.
Yeah, makes
And
people brave.
yeah, and these are people probably that are likely hurting themselves,
Yeah,
and
and that's
so
a big part.
they want to strike out and hurt others.
Yeah, a big part of
Yes.
what we teach is other people's behavior tells you something about where they are, like where they're at in their life. It's not really about you, when they might say horrible things about you or call you names. Really, it's them projecting what's happening for them. So teaching young people about that part of the emotional literacy, so they don't take that stuff on anymore, so they understand where it comes from, really does have a massive impact. I used to work with young offenders for a really long time, and that was one of the key things, was to help them step away and understand that somebody calling them names doesn't chink their armor at all,
Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah.
unless they allow it to.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, yeah, some very good points. Yeah, I appreciate that. So what sort of next steps besides these 7 points?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, where do you go from there in terms of teaching young people and helping them with their mindset, or you just work with them over a period of time? How does that sort of work?
Yeah, so generally our courses are around 8 sessions, which is approximately 16 to 20 hours.
Oh,
That's the sort of smallest chunk of a course that we generally provide. But we do occasional one-off workshops around particular theories or activities to help just people in the general public learn about their resilience and understand themselves a little bit. So usually we talk about reflective skills. So it's about people understanding where they're at now and where they'd like to get to, and putting some targets in the in the process to help them get there. Particularly around emotional literacy and how they interact with people. So we do a lot around communication, about the signals that you're sending out. Are they the signals you really want people to be picking up? Is it what are you conscious of all the signals you're sending? Because sometimes we're not.
indeed, yes. And there might be some in the group that you're teaching that have a lot of problems, and maybe they're ones that are creating problems for others, like trollers and so on. How do you combat something like that?
Yeah, we generally obviously we have a very non-judgmental delivery process. We don't pick on anybody, and it's a very open and safe space when we do, especially when we do face-to-face and in-person training. But actually we don't ask anyone to disclose very much in the group if they don't feel safe to.
Okay.
So
Yes,
that's
yes.
not part of the course. The course is to give them the skills, and how they use them is then for them. The journal work that we don't read the journals. Most of the time the kids do bring them to us to show us what they've done, but we
Right.
don't require to read any of the stuff that they put in their journal, because that safety and that privacy is so important to allow them to express what they need to express, that hopefully they'll be expressing it in the journal and then not at other people on the internet, or wherever that might have been happening before, because they'd have the tools to express it in a way that is safe and manageable rather than having to project it in that way.
Okay, very good. So maybe you could tell us as well where you're sort of going from here in terms of your business.
Yeah, so for the resilience aspect of our business, we hope obviously to get more funding for these projects that we're delivering. We're moving our courses online, so people will be able to engage in those and buy a course online and take a year or so or even longer to complete it, which also provides some sort of group coaching alongside it. So we've got a version for parents, we've got versions for teachers and people who work in the community, and it's all around building resilient skills and the tools that we can use. So there's actual practical downloadable PDF documents which have like step-by-step activities and a kind of supposed to be really inclusive opportunities, because I used to work in education. I understand about differentiation for maybe students that are non-verbal. So it's
Wow.
activities you can still do with those kinds of students, or we try and keep the lessons really short because kids with ADHD or other issues don't want to sit for very long. So yeah, we've tried to sort of pitch it so that there's lots of opportunities for different people to engage in the same lessons. So yeah, we've got lesson plans and all kinds of things that are being released in the next 6 months.
Okay, and so how can people reach you then?
I'm really active on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Just search for Sabrina Shadie. We are having a website redesign, but DeRose Development, DeRoseConsultancy.com, you can find us on either of those URLs. But yeah, LinkedIn's probably the place to really get hold of me, as that's just where we do most of our business and spend a lot of my time.
Okay, good. So if we could just recap those 7 steps really quickly, and then
Yeah.
that would be good. So
Okay.
I'll get you to go through those 7 steps again, just
Yeah.
briefly.
Step 1 is remove yourself from the situation. Step 2, redirect your energy to something positive. Step 3, replenish your body. So water, food, sleep, walk. 4 is about reflecting. 5 is about reframing, thinking about it from a different perspective. Step 6 is maybe revisiting it and trying to smooth it over with, with whoever it was you maybe fell out with. Step 7 is about reviewing and how the journey went and what did you learn.
Right. Yes. Well, it sounds like very good key points. So I appreciate your help and time today, spending to share that with us to help us get our minds back into more of a positive mindset and more resilient in terms of moving forward, dealing. I think this would apply to all of us, not just young people, obviously.
Exactly.
So yeah,
Absolutely.
excellent. Thank you so much for joining me today,
No
and hopefully
problem.
we'll catch up soon and get some more points from you at a later date. Thanks
Thanks very
again,
much. Take
Sabrina.
care.
Take care. So that was Sabrina Shadie. Yeah, I think I've got that right. And she is a resilience and mental health champion, and she was sharing some 7 tips regarding what we can do to help ourselves have a more positive mindset. So that's it for this episode. But later on today, I have a very key episode coming up at 7:30 this evening, dealing with glutathione. What is it? What are the myths behind it? Very important session if you can join us then. But that is it for now, and we'll see you same time, same space. Bye for now.